Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to episode number 52 of the White Knuckle podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Thanks again for tuning into the White Knuckle podcast. Before we get the show on the road for today, I just wanted to take a second and say thanks on behalf of myself and Todd and the rest of the crew at White Knuckle Productions. Thanks so much for making this podcast as successful as it is. When we started out on this adventure a little over a year ago, we didn't have any idea it was going to grow into what it has today. So we're definitely proud of what we've done, and we're happy that you're happy with the results. So again, don't be afraid to tell us through whatever means you want to, whether it's an email, a shout out on any of our social media channels of someone that you want to listen to or a topic that you want to hear about. Don't be afraid to say it. And certainly we always need your reviews on iTunes. Thanks for all that we've gotten so far. Thanks to all our sponsors for all that they've done. But most importantly, thank you again to you, our listeners, for what you guys do for us, and that's allow us to put this show on. So with that, I'll get the more important topic of the day, the show, on the road. Here is our conversation with Mr. Lee LoCascio. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the White Knuckle podcast. Today I have with me, joined in Iowa, my co-host Todd, and probably a guy that doesn't need a whole lot of introduction, Mr. Lee LoCascio from the Crush TV show. Lee, how's it going?
It's going good. Going good. How about you guys?
Doing well.
Going good, man. And the funny part about it is where Lee's at right now, he's only about 10 miles as the crow flies, give or take from my farm. So it's always hilarious because we usually only run into each other at trade shows, and we live so close. It's kind of comical. We at the ATA show, we kind of had a chance to get rub elbows and have a chance to chat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, life's too short. We need to start getting together more often and talking whitetails.
I know it. It is. I mean, you live so close, and I saw some of your Facebook posts with a deer you shot. You had a great season, and it was just like, man, I should call Todd. But as you know, with the farms and stuff you have, there's just so much to do all the time, and you're always going and going and going and going, and pretty soon you know it, you're at the ATA show the next year. Life gets so busy, you forget about that stuff, and we definitely have to, especially now with two little kids running around here too, is even more hectic for us. But like you said, 10 miles away, we definitely need to get together more often.
Well, dude, do you know how long it's been since I moved down here? 13 years this year.
Yeah.
Holy cow, it goes by quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know it. It just seemed like we were out in Michigan yesterday talking about it and saying, hey, you just work for yourself. Why are you living in Michigan up here? You just come down to Iowa.
Well,
now, there's anything wrong with Michigan, mind you, but there's just a little less pressure down here, and you have a chance to get some older deer here.
Well, that's kind of how we typically start the show. I always kind of give a quick introduction on our guest and how I know the particular guest. And Lee and Tiffany, I met through Mark Baird. Oh, my gosh, I don't even know how many years ago. That would have been probably like 16 years ago. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. And Mark was working at Santlock, producing the Wildlife Point Blank show with Aubrey Gale. And I remember at the time, because it was still Tiffany Profant, and she was the cute blonde that was all over the web. And so Mark's like, yeah, have you seen that Tiffany? And so I'm like, he's like, yeah, we're putting a show together with them. I'm like, no way. So I think within the first year of him kind of coordinating with you, all of a sudden I got a call randomly on a Sunday night, and Mark was like, hey, I was wondering if you could do me a favor. And it's like 9:00 at night on Sunday. I have to work 6:00 the next morning or whatever. I was working an engineering job. And he's like, Lee and Tiffany just flew in and they lost their luggage, and I was wondering if you'd give Tiffany a ride to the airport in Grand Rapids, which is about an hour drive, to go pick up their luggage. And I'm like, I remember at the time I said, man, I got to work in the morning. So I hung up the phone, and I'm like, all right, Pringness, this is one of those times where this could be an opportunity, or sometimes you just got to go above and beyond. So I called him right back and said, all right, I'll do it. So I ran up, picked Tiffany up, ran her to the airport, got their luggage, and then you guys were doing, I think, the first cameos of the very first season of Getting Close at the time.
Yeah. I don't remember. I think we had like a photo shoot. I remember somewhere out there and stacking some hay bales and doing some interview pieces. I think we were just trying to put together like a sizzle reel or to bring to sponsors, like, this is what the show may look like. So I think that was at the very beginning. We didn't have the show yet. I think they had just talked to us about doing one.
Oh,
and
wow.
So we were just trying to put a pilot show together.
Well, anyway, long story short, they made quite an impression. I mean, Tiffany was just the nicest, down-to-earth girl ever. We chit-chatted the whole way like two girls to the airport and back. and myself and Lee, I mean, they were just very, very appreciative. And Lee always said kind of like, hey, dude, if you ever are in Iowa, stop in and if you need a place to stay or anything. And then later that summer, like a few months later, you guys came back into West Michigan and were doing some more film stuff. And I invited them to come over to my house. We always did a Wednesday night shooting league where I'd have all my buddies over. We'd barbecue, have a few beers and shoot our bows and stuff in the backyard. I was the bachelor, so I had the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I invited Mark and Lee and Tiffany over, and nobody thought they'd show. And so when they all showed up, all my friends couldn't believe it. And then we ended up having one of the best nights, probably one of the most significant nights in my life, honestly, because it kind of like set the stage for me really starting to think about, holy cow, maybe I should think about moving, to whitetail country, because I still remember a conversation you had with us all those years ago. And you said something along the lines of, I'm not that great of a hunter. I just hunt really great properties, something like that. And it just kind of like planted a seed a bit. And now all these years later, dude, I can't believe how far you guys have taken this. It's absolutely mind blowing to me to see because I got to see you guys kind of really in the beginning stages of the show and your hunting properties. And dude, what a long straight.
Yeah, well, same with you.
I still can't believe it myself, but I tell you, when you get here, it feels a lot different than when you started, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we had one farm here back then, and just doing everything you could to try to get food plots in and try to get deer to old enough. Back then, you're trying to get them to 4-year-olds, and even back then, we probably shot quite a few 3-year-olds that you didn't know, and just how much you learn and stuff from back then. It used to be just horn size and stuff, and now it's how it all turned to age and knowing more. I mean, when I moved down here, I'd never even been on a tractor. I lived in the cities. I could look out my window and see the IDS tower in Minneapolis. I mean, neighbors were 6 feet away. I never had anything like that. You always dreamed of it, but you just never had. Moved down here and never been on a tractor, didn't know anything about farming, didn't know anything about planting food plots, but I'm going to learn. And 15 years later, it's like I have a whole farming operation as well as food plots and everything else. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it was yesterday. It's a pretty, but when you're doing something you love, it's just, every day you learn something for sure.
Well, and that's the one thing. When I moved to Iowa all those years ago, I didn't know anybody, so I was pretty much hanging out with Lee and Tiffany and Big George every day. Like, I'd go over there, and whatever the tasks of the day were, I would always try to help out. And it was just, to me, I was like, dude, I was living the dream. I couldn't believe it. I mean, there was nights I remember sitting at 1 o'clock in the morning on the back of a cedar with Tiffany with the dust frickin' caking up, and Lee's out planting food plots all night long.
Yep.
And those are some of my
our first good buck that we had there, and you came over and helped me get it out, and
that's right. That big eight.
That was like yep.
Oh my.
Still talk about that because that was like one of our first food plots. He didn't have any means of no tractors and all that stuff, hand seeding stuff, and that was like one of our first food plots that we planted that she shot that one on.
Jeez, man, yeah, that was a dandy 8 too. Still know how I think about it.
Yeah.
And so I'd go to Lee and Tiffany's and see the deer they were killing. And I was still from Michigan, for 16 years. I hunted in Illinois and had killed a couple like 130 class type deer, basically. And so every time I'd go see one of their deer, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine seeing one like that, let alone, getting an opportunity. But the one thing that always really, really impressed me about Lee, and I actually still think he's crazy to this day, is the number of hours that you would work compared to anything I had ever seen. And I always considered myself like a go-getter, and I put in more time than anybody. And dude, you work around the clock. Like I was like, dude, you're going to die. Like, you're going to kill yourself. You work so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a 3-ring circus at your place, because no matter what time of day you were either reviewing footage, checking trail cameras, Big George was filming something. I mean, it was kind of like a 3-ring circus, and it was fun. And I just couldn't imagine all these years later, because I know you guys have not let up at all on the throttle. If anything, you guys have been pushing harder and harder.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But are you now that you've had a couple babes, are you guys starting to kind of put a little? Are you still Lee LoCascio the same way I knew you, or are you slowing down a bit?
Not slowing down at all. I can tell you that much. I still love it like I did that first day. I mean, I get up every day and think about food plots and what can I do for deer and planning them out. We just got a place in Illinois, so I just got back from there yesterday, and that's just like Christmas Day again. Okay, you got this new farm. Okay, it's just like, okay, let's unwrap the package. Let's see what we can do with it, and let's planning things out and everything else. So I just kind of went and looked at it for the first time a couple of days ago. So I'm just gonna go back down probably next week and get all soil samples and start doing all that stuff. So it's like I got so much to do here, but it doesn't scare me to take on more because I'm used to it. I work straight through the night, whatever. And now with the kids, it's, Cameron just comes with me on everything. When he was in the tractor last year, he had his car seat in there, and he would take a nap, and I'd bring it. It slows you down a little bit because I got to stop. We let him out. We go and look at seed depth and let him run around the dirt some and, and play. And then when he, instead of a nap at home, he takes a nap in the tractor in the car seat and things. But, then I come home, put him to bed, go back out and work half the night. And so I've just tried to get everything done. And, everyone tells me, you should just hire somebody to do your food plot stuff and everything like that. And I was like, well, no, that's really the reason that I'm doing this. I never really cared to have a TV show or anything like that. I just wanted to have food plots and a good place to hunt and all that kind of stuff. And so if you took that away from it, then it would just be a job again. I mean, that's the part that I love about it. Every year we buy more. Tiffany kills me every year because we've outgrown our house. We need, get something different, a bigger house. But now with 2 kids and everything, and it's just like every year, a new piece of property will come up, or you find something that's next to you, and somebody's selling or something. You just gotta have it, and then there goes the house for another couple of years. But it's you say we can't hunt out of the house. So,
dude, that woman is got to be the toughest, most tolerant woman on earth. I'll put it that way. Because I've seen all sorts, and I mean, when you're running low on sleep, it's the middle of hunting season, dude. It's tough. People really want this lifestyle until they realize how hard you have to work in order to get results. The results, they don't. These big deer. I learned that much when I moved down here. When you watch TV, it was really, these guys are killing these big deer in Iowa. Well, okay, I want to kill 5, 6, 7-year-old deer, and then you start hunting 5, 6, 7-year-old deer, and you realize why not very many guys do it consistently.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people might see the shows just as and think, oh yeah, I can go down there and kill one. That should be easy. It's like, but we hunt 100 days straight. I mean, every single day in the tree stand, morning and night, you're exhausted and stuff. And you shoot, maybe 2. I mean, a couple times I've shot 3, but very rarely out of the 15 years I've been here, we can shoot 3 as a landowner. I've probably done it, 4 or 5 times in 15 years. It's 10 years of hunting the way I used to. When people can hunt weekends or take a vacation for a week or something, it's 10 years worth of hunting to shoot 2 deer like that. So it's, people may watch the shows and think it's easy because you see the 30 minutes of the hunt that you actually were successful, but they don't see the 90 other days that you hunted without getting a shot at them or even seeing one. So it's not as easy as it looks. And you tell people that, but most people don't really realize the work and everything and the hours that go into it to try to put one of them in front of you.
Well, the one part I think that we're both really, really fortunate at is that when you get to hunt that much, not only, you just learn so much every single time you're in the field.
Exactly.
Whether you get skunked or not, man, you take something out of that hunt and you bring it to your next. And, And your background is kind of similar to mine. You're a chemical engineer, and I'm more mechanical side. But like that analytical side and that you're constantly trying to solve problems. I can see it just in like your management.
Exactly.
Stuff. Trying to solve problems, make things better. And I've been looking forward to this podcast so much because when I moved down here, similar to you, I knew nothing about farming. I had never put a food plot in. And now all these years later, I've been doing the same thing, learning on my own. And again, dude, to have somebody else do that work for me, like, it's like, I wouldn't even conceive of it, like that.
No, to me, that's the hunting.
Oh, I love
it. I mean, that's the biggest part of the hunt. And, if anything, I guess, you hear people or, even at seminars, you try to come and hunt deer in New York on public land and see how successful they are. And so it's like, well, that sitting in a tree stand is what most people think of hunting. For me, the hunting starts right now. I mean, it started 2 weeks ago, or when it's done with the ATA show. It's like, okay, now I start looking at what did I see last year? What did I miss out on? What mistakes did I make? Okay, now, and this new piece in Illinois. Okay, now how am I going to find the best deer in the area? How am I going to get them here? How am I going to, the hunt starts right now. And Absolutely. I always compare it to golfing. You don't go out on a golf course and just be a professional golfer. It's thousands of hours on a driving range and putting greens and that. And you just go to the golf course to show what you've learned on the putting greens and on the driving range. Same way with hunting. The real work, the real hunt is all summer long, and finding one and building a place that you can, hold them on there or bring new ones in and stay on your place, and finding, which ones are old enough and which one you want to hunt. And then it gets to October. Okay, now I'm going out to the golf course. I'm just putting together what I learned, because now I'm just sitting. I'm not really hunting. The hunt was all summer long trying to find them. When you're sitting in a tree stand, now I'm just trying to put my work, see if I did a good job over the summer. So it's not like hunting season isn't the hunt to me. The hunt starts right now to find one, looking for the sheds and find, deer that were 3 and 4 years old. And you look at the sheds where they're big or bigger than I thought. You kind of get a good idea of you can always just judge deer, how big you think they are, how much they score. Maybe from pictures and from seeing them, and then you get the sheds, you actually see, was I right on? There's a lot of times you find sheds, you're like, man, that's way more mass, a lot longer main beam than I thought. That deer is going to be better than I thought next year, and he's going to be 5 next year. So, that's one I want to target on. So I'm going to pay more attention to that farm, and really make sure I got the right food plots in the right places. Where have I seen that deer in the past years? And let's get cameras out. I run cameras year round and see when they drop, and then you just for those couple of months they use them for turkey season, and by the time turkey season's over in May, you're already getting, horns up. You're already kind of recognizing some of the deer from their brow tines that are coming up, and you watch them all year long to see what their summer patterns are. Are they staying the same as they were in past years, and am I going to catch that deer where? And so a lot of times, by the time hunting season comes, I have a pretty good idea what deer I'm going to hunt, and actually probably, if not what stand, what field, or what place I'm going to shoot them in. It doesn't always work that way, but
Sure.
I have a pretty good idea by the time hunting season starts. I could probably almost tell you, what stand I'll shoot the deer I'm going to shoot out of. And like you said, it works 10 or 20% of the time. But hey, that's better than nothing, right?
Oh, and I think over the years you just learn to accept failed hunt, and I used to be, you get one spot just set up, and you knew there was a buck there on trail cameras, and then you'd go in there just with your adrenaline pumping. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him. And that doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen over and over and over. And now my mentality is completely different. I don't even care. I know I've got the patience because of the experience and the knowledge that I've gained all these years. And hunting is now more fun for me than it's ever been. Because when I go into those tree stands or those blinds for the first time, I have the confidence that I can sit there and I know what's going to happen here. Or if it doesn't, then I know it's not me. It's just, hey, they weren't moving that day, or maybe he's not here that day.
Right.
And I think for so many years, all of us, until you get to that point where you really start to kind of like have those aha moments, you spend a lot of time just beating yourself up because God, why am I not seeing it? And your personality is like mine, where you drive yourself freaking crazy. Why is that deer not moving here? Where are the does? And over the years, you just start to realize, dude, some days deer just don't move. It's biology.
Right. And just where they go to, you just never know. I mean, and you learn so much that a lot of times deer, you're just not seeing them, you're not getting pictures. And then, now that we've gotten more and more farms around here, we've had several times now that we've had deer that we're hunting. We go check cameras on a farm 3 miles away, and he's over there. You get pictures of him. Just the one that Tiffany shot late season this year. He'd been in this farm for, since he was 2, and Tiffany had tons of encounters. And when he was 3, he was just so aggressive every time. She had a decoy out once, and every time she'd rattle, that same 9-point would just come running in. You're like, man, in a couple of years, you had really long beams, had a little extra point in between his 2 and 3, and it's like, yeah, in another year he'll be good. And then 2 years ago he didn't grow, or he broke off his left or his right side. When he showed up, we never had pictures of him in velvet through the summer, but he showed up right away in October, and he just was missing a side right at the skull, and it was just kind of furred over, so you didn't know, did he break it off or not even grow it or what? But his other side was giant. But then he was, you didn't see him very often, and he didn't get very many pictures. It was like maybe once every week or once every 2 weeks you get a picture, and I only saw him one time out of all the times that we hunted there. And so he was becoming, you always think, well, maybe they're just not moving as much or whatever. And you just don't know, and you really don't. But then this year, same thing. He put both sides up. Like, man, he's a giant now, 6 years old, and this huge neck and huge body and everything. But he was just so sporadic. I mean, you get pictures of him 3 days in a row. All right, now get in there. He's gonna be in there. And she'd hunt him for 7 or 10 days straight. Never see him. Never picture of him. God, what the heck? And this went on through the whole year, all the way through December. And then she just happened to be. And then he was gone. After the gun season, through the whole gun season, and after a week after, no pictures of him at all. I figured somebody probably shot him in gun season. So we just kind of wrote him off. And then Tiffany goes over to another farm, and she was just running the dogs and pulled just one camera on that. She said, I just want to drove by, I pulled the card out of it. So I have to go put another card back in there. But I checked it, and there was, we call him Southpaw because he just had that left side that 1 year. And there's a picture of him. This is 3 miles away from the farm that we've been hunting him on. And I was like, but it was on the night of the 18th. And I was like, hey, he made it through the gun season. So he is alive. And so it was that next day or whatever that I said, let's go hunt him over on the original farm. She's like, well, why would we hunt him there? He was over on this farm. I said, yeah, but all the food is over on the other farm, way more than was on this one. And so that's where he's lived his whole life. And sure, we went out there that night. He comes out and she shot him with her bow at 45 yards. He was still a mainframe 9-point, but just huge. He has 29-inch beam to 28-inch beam, but 175-inch, basically a 9-point, and then the 4 is small. But it's just, you just can't ever figure him out, because he's like, why would he be 3 miles away from there? And where was he all those times that that didn't show up there? And then we have another farm, just 2 different farms that are about 3 miles south of there, and we have one we call Flyers. He's got 2 big Flyers off his 2s, and he would be on one farm all summer long, every year, for the past 3 years. And then he would show up, and then he would show up 3 miles away on this other farm, and he stays there all through the whole hunting season, through the rut. I saw him tons of times this year. But he was 5 this year, but he broke those Flyers off, which was the cool part. So we didn't hunt him. So, it's just like, why would he move? We have all the food and does and everything you'd ever want over on the other farm. It's actually bigger. And then he moves over to this other one that's half the size, and he stays there all hunting season. So there's a lot of times you just think deer are dead, or what happened to them? They must have died or something, because they've been here their whole lives and they just disappear, and who knows why. I mean, you just figure, why would he go over there? And then this year especially, I've got lots of pictures late season here now after the season's over, just in the past 2 weeks. Bucks I thought were dead, didn't see for the whole year, thought they were gone. 3 different bucks now have showed up. And just yesterday, I didn't get a picture of him. I just found the shed off of one. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe he's still alive. I mean, the deer that were on your cameras and on your fields, every week, you get tons of pictures of them. And we'd see him, and let's give him another year. and then nothing this year. You know, like, well, they must have died because they were here every single day of their lives the last 3 years. And all of a sudden you find a shed of it. It's like, where would they go? And that's the thing, you just never can really figure them out, but you learn that just because one isn't there right now, that doesn't mean that he's gone. So you got to keep checking those areas back, and you know, deer that you think are dead might not be, but you just can never figure them out. And that's what keeps you, for me, and I'm sure you as well, being an engineer, you want to figure everything out. You want to have a solution to it. But with deer, you'll never figure them out. So it'll be a lifetime of trying to figure them out. And you learn a lot of things, but there's still a lot of things you'll never know. And that's what makes it so fun, you know, because if you could figure them out, then okay, that task would be over. You'd have to move on to the next thing.
Dude, that's what keeps me coming back every year. Like, I mean, and they're so unique, but at the same time, they still have some of the same characteristics. But one of the things you mentioned we've talked about over and over, and I keep hammering guys about this too, is you mentioned that, you know, hey, we got a picture of this buck, but your gut told you where you needed to be based on your experience and just knowledge of your farm, the time of year, the seasons. You know, the time of season has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many guys who hunt trail cameras. They get one picture of a buck and they're just like, okay, he's there. I'm going to hunt it and hunt it. And they don't see him. But because of those freaking cameras, sometimes they can be your worst nightmare. For example, this past season, that big typical I killed, I got pictures of them on my Spartan camera. So these cell phone cameras are even worse now because now you're getting instant gratification, right? So I got pictures of them and I ended up killing them 24 hours later, about a half mile away from where I got the Spartan cam pics.
Right.
And it's just like, but my gut during the different times of year, like at that particular time of year, I'm hunting the doe bedding areas. I'm not even hunting the bucks anymore. I'm hunting the doe bedding areas.
Right.
And actually, there's a question. One of my questions I had for you, just out of pure curiosity, just of trying to determine where I sit with your average. You guys, you have more food plots than most, but when you're hunting a particular animal, do you generally try to spend part of your time hunting on the food and then part of the time in the cover of the bedding areas? Do you have any, or is it just unique for each animal you follow your gut and you hunt where you think you're going to kill them, or do you have any sort of a strategy where you're always try to kill them on the food first before you go into the thick?
Mine is, it's like you said, the trail cameras for me, like I hear that too. A lot of people are like, well, you know, and even there's some software out there. Okay, you get a picture of this buck and you try to pattern the deer from pictures. It's like, that's baloney, really. I mean, people, you know, how many pictures of a buck do you, I mean, they're on their feet every single day. A lot of people would be like, I only get nighttime pictures of them. They're only nocturnal. Well, no deer is nocturnal. I mean, they're up on their feet during daylight every single day. You just don't have a camera, 6 million cameras behind every tree to see exactly what he's doing. And so for me, I use the cameras just to give me an inventory, just to know that he's there. You know, because it doesn't make any difference to me if you get a picture of him in the middle of the night. It's like, okay, he's still here. He's still moving. I more know each farm. And like, I know how to hunt each one of these farms. Some of the farms where they bed is just too open, and I'll never get in there without spooking them out. And I think every time you go in, you may think you get in clean. Okay, I got in and got out. I didn't spook anything. That's great. It doesn't make any difference. 24 hours later, deer walking through there will know you've been in there. So
absolutely,
you got to be real careful on how you do it. And for me, a lot of times I spend a lot of time in these woods throughout the whole summer and everything else, and my food plots. So they're kind of used to me being there. So it's not like, you know, a lot of times even me, I wrote articles about, hey, just keeping everything, you know, don't ever go in there. Keep it, you know, as you know, scent free and everything all year as possible. But that's not the case anymore. I think the exact opposite now. I spend as much time as I can on those, so those deer are used to it. And you think about deer that live in the suburbs. They're bedding in people's yards, because they've never been harmed there. They've never been shot. They've never been shot at. They've never been. It's not that they don't smell humans. They smell them every single day, and they haven't been any harm to them. So, you know, I kind of think of lots of different ways, but I know how to hunt my farms, and the farms are different. And there's some of them that have bedding areas that I can go in there and hunt those, and I think I can get in and out without, disturbing too much, and places that I can go in the summertime when I'm, filling feeders or checking cameras or something when they're used to me there. And then there's other ones that don't. I said, I just can hunt the fields here my food plots, because that's my best chance of getting them without,
Yep.
moving anything out. Like you said, is the cameras for me are just purely to know that they're there. That's all I need to know. I know how to hunt them. I know each farm where I'm gonna hunt them. Like here at my house, I mean, there's these ridges that they bed on all the time, and you learn that from shed hunting, and you see when we used to get snow anyway, you'd see where all the does were bedding and stuff. So okay, you learned through shed hunting where all the does were bedding. That's likely where they're gonna be bedding, throughout the whole fall and stuff too. So that's where I'm gonna hunt the bucks, even though, you may not even find many sheds or anything in there. But it's like, if that's where they're at. So we hung the stand. Is still my favorite stand to this day. So you learn all those places. Okay, in the rut, I can catch them on the knob stand because that's where all the does are going to be bedding. They're going to be cruising through there, and they always do. And other farms, it's just too heavy, too thick in there. I can't see far enough, and they're always out on these food plots. I'm going to hunt them on these food plots. So it's not necessarily the deer; it's more the farms that how to hunt those particular farms and where they can come out. Because some farms, deer will come out early. You'll get a 7-year-old buck out on a food plot at 2 in the afternoon, and they're out early. In other places, they're not out in the fields until dark or after dark. Okay, those are the farms that that deer. I'm going to have to hunt them in the timber and the bedding areas and things like that. So, I mean, each one is different. But to me, I know how to hunt the farms more than the deer. Because deer are going to come and go. The farms are always staying the same. But deer kind of, like you said, everyone is individual, but they still are deer. They still tend to do the same things year after year. So, for me, it's
part of what you were talking about with ground
farm.
scent and stuff. Like, that's one of the things that it takes you a long time to realize. Like, just like you said, you can sneak in and sneak out, but they know you're there. So what I have really gotten a kick out of learning, and part of my strategy is I create patterns in certain areas where I want the deer to pattern me throughout the season. I want them to be used to me walking on a certain trail. I want them to be used to certain scent on the field edge. And in some cases, if it's a property that I have to share, or in the past that I've shared with other guys where I know where they're hunting, then in the summer when I'm going in and checking trail cameras, then I make certain I'm going to walk on the field edge right next to their tree stand. So the deer in the territory have a pattern of a human walking along that edge. And I'll know where I can catch them later on in the season, which is generally downwind in the thick cover. But every property, just like what you were talking about, every property, I've been hunting and living and looking at my own property behind my house for the last 7 years or whatever. And just this year, I finally killed a buck we call Katie's buck, which was a 7-year-old 6-pointer. He reminded me of that tall brow 9 you killed so many years ago.
Yeah. You would see him all the time. You could never get a shot at him.
And that it's the same thing. This Katie's buck reminded me so much of him because we were trying to kill him since he was 3 years old. That's why I named him Katie's buck, because he was a 6-pointer. I'm like, perfect first buck for Katie. Well, took me to kill that frickin' deer. And I figured
someone name them just because they might be management deer. It doesn't make them any dumber and easier to shoot.
He was the worst, dude. He drove me crazy. Finally, he was the first deer that drove me to a gun, because I finally said, I got to get rid of this deer, so I picked up a muzzleloader. And still, even that day, I think he had my number. He just was way out, and I ended up getting a crack at him. It's a little bit easier with a gun.
Right.
But that buck has been, I figured out this year, he's been watching us come and go the whole gall darn time, and it's insane, but he's been bedding within 200 yards of my house and my neighbor's house all these years.
Yep.
And it's just, look at the territory that I live in, the view, the timber, the property. You'd think there is no way in heck that deer is going to live there. But, dude, that's where he survived. So it's natural evolution. These deer, if they are stupid and out in the open, they're going to die young. And so in order to make it to that 6 or 7, they're going to do stuff that other deer just don't do. And in fact, you have to do things as a hunter that no other hunter has done before that time or that opportunity. And that's probably, I think, what really separates the super successful big buck killers is that just a willingness to always try something new and to always continue to hang new stands, try new things. Because I'll tell you, man, over the years, it seems like I don't think I've ever killed 2 big mature deer out of one stand. I think I was thinking about that a couple months ago. I don't think I've ever killed 2 big bucks out of a tree stand, maybe out of a plot I have, out of a blind. But tree stands, every year I'm tweaking the sets. I'm moving them here and there, and sometimes it's moving at 20 yards or 30 yards. But I always used to crack up because back in the day when Kyle and I were down here filming, Kyle used to film with me full time when we were crazy gung-ho. And we would like hang out with Lee and Big George, and it was like with Lee and Big George standing there, it was like 4 of Kyle and I. And so every stand that these guys had to sit in, and it was a joke because Big George was big, and Lee's not a small guy. So we used to joke like, dude, how do they even freaking hunt out a tree stand? Like, these guys are freaking huge. So that was like, that's something people don't think about, though. It's easy when you're watching it on camera, but dude, like, that's where I hunt now. I started still filming, and I just love it. I love the challenge of it. But for me, it opens up the whole timber. I can hunt 8 feet off the ground. In fact, that's how I killed my buck this year. I killed 8 feet off. I mean, it's just like, now that's what I really enjoy. That's my challenge. I mean, you guys hunt full time with camera guys. Is it you and Tiff still hunt independent with 2 camera people, or do you still film for each other occasionally?
We always have camera guys. I mean, the only time that we hunt and film together is, and I mean, we love it too, is, you know, 'cause it seems like we always are successful when we do. It's still to this day, but it's always just like around Thanksgiving or Christmas, or, you know, when our guys go home and say, hey, and we're still here, it's like, hey, let's run out, just you and I. And we always have I can't think how many, like 3 years in a row, Tiffany killed one on like Christmas Eve day. I mean, we always run up to Minnesota, but I said, all right, well, let's like on the 23rd or the 24th, we just go out and then we just head up to Minnesota right after hunting. So, but like 3 years in a row, she'd kill one with just her and I. You know, you'd hunt all year for these deer, and her and I would go out and bam, there they'd show up, and she'd shoot them, and we'd run up to Minnesota, and it was like, we always have good luck together. But, you know, to have to, you know, we do 20 original episodes, and we don't have, you know, a big team like Drury's or even Whitetail Freaks, where you have a lot of people out there, you know, and you rely on other people too. It's just Tiffany and I. So, I mean, and it's hunting. It's not like you're building widgets. It's just, hey, you guys want to do 20 episodes? Let's ramp up production. I mean, some years are good, some years are bad. We've had years, tons of EHD where you didn't have many deer and stuff. So, you know, we got to maximize our time. Time is what's, you know, the most valuable. So, you know, we each have our own cameraman, other than, you know, holiday or something when they run home for a couple of days.
Sure.
You know, but we never take a day off.
Lee, I've got a question for you. You know, there's a lot of people that probably watch your show that think it's easy, and I think you guys covered all that. And having done it, not to the level that you've done it now, but having done it for several years and trying to film the whole process, etc., it's not easy in any way, shape, or form. So there's a certain amount of effort that you put in prior to that. What is Lee LoCascio doing today and the next 2 or 3 months to prepare for October and November and the opportunities that you create yourself in October and November by whatever it is that you're doing now? What is it that you do?
Well, I mean, right now, I'm just, you know, you're taking inventory of your bucks, see which ones are left, because, you know, it's free range. A lot of the deer, I mean, our neighbors shoot a lot of them. So you just, and I don't always hear about it either, because I don't, you know, I'm gone a lot. I don't talk to them. I don't even know half of them. And, you know, so when deer are just gone, you just assume somebody else shot them, and then, which is sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But I don't know all our neighbors, so I don't get to hear all the time. But now it's just looking, you know, checking cameras still. If I do it every day right now, I'll go check cameras someplace. And, you know, and then, you know, I maybe picked up maybe a dozen sheds so far, because they made a lot of them shed early this year because it was so cold right after the rut. And so some are dropping early, but normally I don't really get after sheds too much until you get into February, especially late February. But just kind of right now, taking an inventory of what we have left, what deer we have left, seeing how much food I have left. If I don't, you know, if there's a farm that has like no food left on it, all right, then you got to get feeders going and putting out alfalfa bales and stuff, just to make sure I'm keeping them there and keeping them healthy, and, you know, make sure they've got food. But, you know, right now is where it starts, is picking up all the, you know, sheds and just seeing what inventory is left from this year. And, you know, so, and normally I like to see what farm has something. A lot of times you have some really good genetic deer, like a 3. And the hardest part is getting those 3-year-olds through because they're big. I mean, if you have a deer that's potential to be at 200, at 3, they're normally, a lot of times they're in the high 60s, sometimes even 170s at 3 years old. And, most people aren't like myself, that are worried about age. They just see a 170-inch rack coming through and they're shooting. And at 3 years old, the deer are the dumbest that they're ever going to be. I mean, you rattle, you grunt, they come running in, they're on their feet all the time trying to chase does because they want to be prime breeders, but they're not old enough yet. So they're on, most of the time they're getting knocked off if they find a hot doe by, the 4 or 5-year-old or older bucks. And so they're always on their feet. And so those are like the easiest ones to kill. And you don't blame them. I was the same way when I first moved down here. I'm sure I've shot several 3-year-olds that were in the 160s because I thought they were big at the time. And then you start learning, hey, you got to start thinking of age and not just rack size. So it's so hard to get like a 200-inch deer. And that's what was so amazing for me to have the year that I did. But it is so hard. I mean, it is like 1 in a million just to get the genetics to do it, and then to get them past that 3-year-old age and even 4 years old, because we don't shoot any of them that are 4. And we've had a lot of them, several 200-inch deer that were 4 years old. And, I mean, like I said, now we've shot 2, but we've had several almost every year, and they never make it through. Either I find them dead or neighbors shoot them or something. It's just so hard to get one to that 5 years or 6 years old. And
it's very rare.
So,
dude, it's nuts. I've been hunting in Iowa now for 13 or 14 years, and I mean, I've seen some big Boone and Crockett's, and the one I killed this year was probably one of the bigger, definitely the biggest frame typical I've ever seen. But just like what Lee was saying, and usually by the time, if they do make it to that state, they are a very cagey personality animal because they have to be to make it through those early years. They have to be the buck that's not out real aggressive all the time. Aggressive.
Right, and most of the big ones that, I've gotten that you see, and if they were able to make it, they are very passive deer. They're not the aggressive deer. Sometimes I see like these 3-year-olds or 2-year-olds even that are just, oh my gosh, inside points and stickers, but they're super aggressive. They're always busted up. You're like, they're never going to make it. I mean, the only chance you have them making is if they break so much off that maybe a neighbor that sees them won't shoot them or not realize that, how big they are or whatever. But those ones will never make it because you can rattle them in and they're always up looking. I have a 2-year-old over on one of our farms right now that is my big one that I shot this year. He's like a carbon copy of him when he was 2, but bigger. He got more splits and stickers, and he is one that's going to make it because you see him very seldom. I mean, you get a couple pictures of him. I've seen him like 4 or 5 times, but never during the rut, never chasing does, always just in the food plots eating. He comes out, and he's just super skittish, super spooky. Even when a bunch of deer start getting, like late season, when they start getting a bunch of deer out there and some of the does start running around, he just leaves the field. He's super passive, and he's super skittish, and it's like that's a deer that has potential to make. I'm really excited about him, even though he's 2. Just because he's, of course he could, I haven't seen him now even late season. Like, who knows? Somebody might have shot him already. You just don't know because he's big enough, even at 2 years old, that somebody would see him. Because his body's so small and the rack looks pretty big compared to with all the stickers and splits and stuff, and shoot him. That happens a lot, too. They don't. Who knows? But I'm hoping that he's still alive, and that one could be a big one. But if you see aggressive deer, that are big, they never make it. They're just too visible.
I mean, just right here, just in my neighborhood, any bucks that are callable will be dead by 4. Period. Because you got guys rattling. So any of the bucks that I'm targeting, which are usually 6, 7 years old now, in some cases even older, I pretty much don't even call. I mean, they're uncallable. Like, as soon as you touch your antlers together, boom, they're gone. I mean, they're just going
to know where you're at, and you have no chance.
Exactly.
All you do is tip them off to where you're at.
So is it safe to say then that you're probably not going to be the guy in the woods with the rattling antlers, banging them together, and grunt calls, etc.?
I bet you I didn't rattle 5 times this whole year.
I love it, man. Finally, somebody will admit it.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because, like I said, a lot of your big ones, it'd be so rare to rattle one in. And the times that I do is if I see one of them, like in between does that are just cruising. Because a lot of times, like our big ones, and we have so many, I mean, our deer numbers are still pretty good. I haven't shot any does for 4 years with all the EHD. I want to get their deer numbers back. So now we're getting to the point where, like, the last 2 years haven't lost hardly any. So we're getting to have a lot of does. So, a buck can go from one doe to the next, a lot of times literally in minutes. Or he might even be with the doe still, and then another one coming in and just takes off and goes and gets the new one. It might be 0 time in between. But it's like if they have a doe, which is the old deer, the big ones, is pretty much 99.9% of the time through the rut they are with a doe. They don't care if you rattle, snort, we do whatever you want. It makes no difference to them. They aren't coming. So, now you're just rattling in 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and yeah, it's kind of neat for video footage and stuff like that. But then again, just on those younger ones, you're just educating them to you where you're at anyway. So most time when I rattle, if I see a big one, an old one that you just happen to catch them in between does, and you catch them cruising. And then I usually just wait until they're out of sight and give them 30 seconds or something out of sight, and then hit the rattlers once, and if they turn, if they're interested, man, they'll be in there right now. And if they don't come, it's like, well, they're on a mission going someplace, because obviously they heard it. They're not coming. No sense to keep rattling. So it's very seldom, and mostly just when I see one. But then there's sometimes it's just super slow mornings, and it's just like, heck, I'm just gonna rattle, see what comes in, if anything. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And a lot of times, like, just out of sheer boredom, like some of the times that I've rattled this year have been just because I wasn't seeing anything. I didn't even see a doe or a deer, and it's the middle of the rut. Let me just see if there's what's around, and mostly just because you're bored and you have a TV show. I want get some footage, but I'm not really expecting to have your big one that you're looking for come in when you just blind rattle, and I don't think it's ever happened really. Maybe once or twice that I can think of, that one that I shot came in.
Lee, think about this, what I think about from over the years. Think about how many hunts you've ruined because you started rattling in the perfect set, the perfect situation. And I did it year after year after year. And because it's fun. It's fun to rattle, dude. There is nothing like sitting up in a tree and bashing antlers together when you're bored out of your mind and cold. And now the way I look at it is, you work your whole season to sneak into that one position on that one secret day, and to not let anything know you're there. And as soon as you touch those antlers together, you might as well have a megaphone up in the tree yelling, "Hey, what's up, guys?" Because that's what these big deer hear. And especially, I know that the difference between a good rattling set and a not a good rattling set, meaning if you're in the middle of a thick timber and you rattle your antlers together and there's not the associated crashing noises that go with it.
Right.
You're not going to call anything in. Now, on the other hand, if you're out on a big CRP field, on a food plot edge where it would be more common to just hear the antlers, then that's a callable set or a spot where you'd feel comfortable calling at a deer. But that just takes experience and common sense. I mean, dude, look at where you're at and say, if 2 big bucks are fighting right here, and we're talking not 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds just playing around, because that's not going to call a big bucking. What's going to call a big bucking is 2 big bucks fighting, and him interpreting that as that they're fighting over a hot doe, or it's a territorial thing, a dominance thing. But dude, like 90% of the time, my sets, and probably the same thing for yours, are just sets that I just wouldn't call. And I think that's where it's so deceiving with all the commercialization, and man, we're all trying to make a living. So nothing against guys who do. And if you like to rattle and you've had good luck with it, good for you. I know Lee's not telling you how to do it, and I'm certainly not telling you how to do it. Do what works for you. But I think over time, more people you talk to who specifically target those individual animals that aren't just trying to get lucky and catch one cruising, you're not going to do it by calling them in. I mean, in general. Right,
and the thing is, it's like, I'd say 90% of the deer that you rattle in that even people shoot are probably 3-year-olds. Even though they might be big racks, I mean, like, and that's fine. I mean, because I was there. There was a time when I shot my first forky, and man, I drove around by truck for 2 weeks with the thing, and they're so proud of it. So I mean, it takes you a point to get there. And when I got here too, I did the same thing. It was a good genetic, a big, 3-year-old that was 12-point or stickers or something, man, I was shooting it. And pretty soon you realize that, and you're passing 5-year-old 8-points because they're only 130 inches. Like, man, I passed that one. It's like, all of a sudden, year 3 here on our first farm here, it's like, well, every ridge is run by an old crappy 8-point. You killed all your good genetic young ones that would stay there. Now these old crappy ones are running the whole place, running everything out. You're like, well, that was terrible management. So, I mean, most of the deer people are shooting that are rattling in are probably younger deer, 3-year-olds, even though they could be big. They could be, man, I rattled in a 170-inch deer. But it's likely not a 6 or 7-year-old buck. It's likely a young one. So, like you said, when we're targeting 5 and 6-year-old bucks and specific ones, you're not rattling to get them in. It's more, okay, you've learned over the years of watching them and seeing what their habits have been in the past and putting yourself in the area that gives you a good chance of, your best chance anyway, of potentially seeing one or seeing him, is that you're likely not going to rattle them in. I mean, there's definitely times that I've seen them, and they weren't close enough, so I wait, till they get out of sight. I never rattle when they're in sight either. And man, they snap their head and look right away, and they're targeting, pinpointing you in the tree. So if I see them, I let them get over the ridge or away, 20, 30 seconds, then hit them, quick and set them up and hang them back up. So that where they heard it, but they aren't, turn their head and seeing you up in the tree. So I mean, it's not very often, and you would be real careful. I mean, I don't never rattle when I can physically see them and wait till they get out of sight. You never know, they could turn, come by you, or you never know. But when they're out of sight and they can't see exactly where it's coming from, that usually gets them to turn around and come up and look if they're interested at all, if they're in the right mood and things. And like I said, you've watched enough bucks fight myself. It's cool to see that it's not a lot of clashing of antlers. It's a little bit more pushing than anything. So I think the way that you, like you said, to make it realistic, so you see so many people just clack, 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 clack. And it's like deer stand there and shake their head to hit one time, and mostly it's pushing. And like I said, with the branches and leaves and all that. So a lot of times if I do it, I have branches and more snapping the branches and hitting the trees with the antlers and stuff. More so than even hitting antlers together, because most of the time when they hit, they're just pushing, and it be more, like you said, leaves and sticks breaking and all that, rather than hearing the sounds of antlers.
When is it, guys, that you guys think that a deer, in terms of age now, that a deer turns the corner in terms of, I don't want to say smarts, but in terms of its ability to interpret its surroundings? Certainly they make a change. Like Lee, you referenced, it's if you're rattling one in, it's likely a 3-year-old. But when do you think at what age do you think they're making that turn where they just look at things differently? Well, that's it. That's the cliffhanger. You'll have to wait till next week to hear Lee's answer. There's just way too much information that took place over the course of this interview to pump into one show. So we broke it into two, just so that everyone could digest all the information that Todd and Lee talk about. It was definitely a privilege to listen to the two of them talk. I'm just happy that I was able to partake in the conversation from time to time, and happy that I was able to sit and listen to everything that those two had to say and soak up as much as possible. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. So with that, we'll end the show today. If you want to look up Lee and Tiff, they're obviously all over the social media, at Instagram, Twitter, and obviously Facebook, and you can also find them at thecrush.tv. I'll have links to all those things in the show notes. With that, we'll close out the show today. Just a reminder for those of you who don't already subscribe to us, for iPod, iPhone, whatever listeners, grab your phone or device and go to the iTunes store and search for the White Knuckle Podcast. This will help you to download the free podcast app that's produced by Apple. You can subscribe to the show from within that app, and every time I produce an episode, you'll get it downloaded right to your device. That's also where you can give us a review, hint, hint. For Android listeners, download the Stitcher Radio app. That's also free. That'll accomplish the same thing as downloading the podcast from iTunes, just on an Android phone. For those of you who don't have a mobile device, you can look us up on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can listen to it directly right on Facebook. With that, I'll close out the show for today. That's it. Jason out.